What's happening? It's Mr. Royce from Royce Media coming at you guys with yet another video. Guys, I have to excuse all of the background noise. My neighbors are out cutting grass. I'm gonna finish doing my yard work pretty soon, but I wanted to knock out a quick video, a Sunday sermon, if you will. I want to talk about why men are leaving the church, black men in particular, because there's something that a few YouTubers have talked about and women have complained about for a while. Well, in particular with the church, and especially the black church, caters to women, single mothers. In fact, the basis of the Jesus story is a single mother. It's a woman who got pregnant without being married, had a kid, and that kid was raised by a stepfather, which is noble of the stepfather of Joseph, but he's largely written out of the Jesus story. You hear more about Mary and Jesus than you do about Joseph. You know, and the church seems to treat men, stepfathers, pretty much the same. Then furthermore, the men are compared to the legend of Jesus, which is it's pretty big shoes to fill, and you know, especially so in the West, Jesus is a white guy, which is very different than the black American population and its derivatives. Now, getting back to what I was saying earlier, the church really doesn't cater to men. Yeah, you're primarily seen as a utility and as a problem. You know, there's nothing to build strong men and to maintain that strength other than humbling yourself to Jesus. As a man, I don't want to be told to be humbled by somebody I can't see. You know, don't tell me to humble myself and then want my strength and utility to hold things together. You look at in the past, you look at the most notorious form of Christianity on the planet, the Catholic Church. It had armies, had killers. You know, you look at you look at a lot of the white churches, they still value the men. They still have mechanisms in building the type of men they need. Conversely, in the black church, you know, deacons and choir directors, pretty much of what you're getting. Musicians and praise dancers. And a lot of good that does in the greater scheme of things. Black church is not building tradesmen, it's not building blacksmiths, not building you know, electricians and engineers and different things like that. There's no skills being developed and passed on. So as far as being a man and doing the things that men need to do in order to build society and keep it going, you know. So there's nothing there in the church that speaks to what a man is and what a man needs to be. You know, everybody can't be an apostle or a pastor or a priest or a preacher. You know, you got to have men that can do other things. You know, even Jesus was a carpenter. You know, his apostles were fishermen, tax collectors, different things like that, soldiers, different things like that. And you don't see this reflected and put to prominence in the church, in particular the black church. So the task at hand is that the church, number one, has to foster that. And number two, the church needs to tell the truth about what men are. You know, men are the way they are because they have to be. There are things about men and masculine nature, masculinity that have to be accepted. And of course, they have to be used for good, but there are things about men that the church is constantly trying to change that it shouldn't. You got a prime example, you know, you got little boys that are, you know, he might be a shooter, then that church needs to focus that energy to make him a warrior for God. You know, and I mean a real warrior, not this old praise dancing, hand clapping, tambourine beating shit. I mean real shooters, like, you know, with the Mormons. If you ever been around Mormons, they got shooters for real. For real. They got real shooters, you know. The Catholic Church has shooters, you know. Black church has choir directors. We see how that goes. That old ass deacons. We see how that goes, you know. You know, you got to speak to men. You got to speak to nature, men. You have to speak the truth about things that took place in the Bible and put it in the context of things today. You know, when looked at properly, actually the Bible is very red pill and black pill, extremely in some cases. You know, you look at the practical examples of things, like when it talks about the stories of Jezebel, Lot's wife, different things like that. You know, certain scriptures in Isaiah 4, different things like that. This is speaking to the nature of men, the stories of guys like Abraham and Israel and different things like that. It speaks to the nature of men, and it wasn't that God tolerated this stuff. God created these men and made them in a certain way because certain things need to be done. So we're now trying to change this and turn everybody into soy boys. The church has a big role in that, trying to change men into soy boys. You know, when you had things like the Promise Keepers and stuff, you know, it was largely killed at the behest of women. When you had the Detroit 300, it was killed largely at the behest of women. When you had My Brother's Keeper, when they tried to get that going, it was killed primarily at the behest of women, you know. So when you take a oppositional stance against men, you can't expect them to stay around. You can't expect them to want to be a part of what you have when you are in direct opposition to what men are. You know? You look at, when I mentioned that the church is red pill and black pill, you look at MGTOW. That's largely monks, especially when you talk MGTOW monks. That is a MGTOW monk is a secular monk. You look at SYSBM. This is how the Catholic Church colonized different countries and brought different populations into the fold. This is one of the tactics of SYSBM. You know, you look at you look at IBMORS. That's, you know, it's a secular application to biblical principles and laws. You know, you look at Awaken While Married. That's, you know, the story of various men in the Bible such as Abraham, Lot, Adam, Joseph, all of that stuff, you know. So what a lot of these church leaders need to do is need to look at these secular movements and see how they apply to what they want to do religiously. And it's not just Christians. I mean, you look at what's going on with Judaism. You know, I think Islam is really the only religion really growing, and that's because they stick to their guns on certain things, you know. So you know, you have to take a look at it and see why they're growing and why are we not, you know. And you have to kind of learn from that. You know, I'm always say you have to, certain groups, you have to look at how they unionize and move about to achieve certain successes. You have to learn from that and see how you can apply it to your own situations, goals, and aspirations, you know. And it's funny, you know, I get pushback about talking about the LGBT movement, but they are a great example of unionization and having an agenda and pushing that agenda. Gotta learn from that, you know. There are lessons in everything. You look at how white women unionize, you know, you can learn a lot from that. You know, anyway, getting back to this thing with the churches, you know, you want men back in, you want to bring men back, you need to, number one, let men be men and make, you know, church and Christianity a place where men can flourish, where men can feel like men, you know. This whole, you know, single mother push, that's done so you can get the money up out of them. We're not slick. You know, you're not slick. We see what it is. It's game, you know. So you got to ask yourself, who's going to protect all of those single mothers? Who's going to help raise those kids? Who's going to continue building those churches and maintaining that infrastructure and stuff? You got to figure that out. Getting back to the whole, you know, I mentioned the SYSBM thing, you know, missionaries and setting up, you know, little colonies and stuff. That's SYSBM. You know, setting up little enclaves and colonies of people, of like-minded people. That's a principle of SYSBM. You know, the church has got to reach more into his red pill side, more into his black pill side, you know, to bring these guys back, you know, to get these guys back in a space where they feel like, you know, they're appreciated in these spaces and that they're understood, you know, because now what you're having is you're competing with secular movements, and these movements are growing while your populations are not growing. So it is what it is. Anyway, this is Mr. Royce Media. Like, share, and subscribe. Get in the comment section. I know some of y'all gonna get in there and bitch because that's what you do. Well, you know, have at it. This is Mr. Royce Media, and I'm out.